If I haven't had a chance to introduce myself to you yet, my name is Delia Dominguez. I'm a teacher. I'm still teaching. I work at San Elizario High School. I've been in San Eli for 14 years now. So it was a little bit of an experience. My background is slightly different. It might be similar to some of you. I'm not too sure yet. But I actually got my degree in biology. The beginning is just basic introduction. What are ELPS? Who designed them? Why did they become the popular norm? We're supposed to be implementing them in the classroom. However, a lot of people don't even know that they exist. So we need to talk about that. So to begin with, you have a next page there, and I'm going to try to be giving you some strategies that you can use. And the first one is called Find Someone Who. And this is a cooperative learning structure. And it's one that's specific to Kagan. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with that, but Kagan is very, 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 very well known for their cooperative learning strategies. And I really enjoy using them in the classroom because it makes everybody accountable. Everybody's going to be doing something. Everyone has been in that situation where you're working in groups and one person ends up doing all the work and then the other person ends up not doing anything, and then it just doesn't set up a good environment and people end up resenting one another. So what I like about this particular strategy is that everyone's accountable. And how does it work for our ELL students? Well, our ELL students, they're intimidated. They have an anxiety level about it. They may not know the vocabulary. And so then they have a limited social vocabulary to begin with, especially if they're beginners, if they're just here. So how is it that we can make them comfortable and encourage them having that academic discourse? Well, this is one of the ways. So what I would like for you guys to do right now is at the top it says your name. Please make sure you put your name on your paper. And I'm trying to tell you this just based on stuff that I've learned the hard way in the classroom. If you don't put your name on your own paper when you're doing this Find Someone Who, you'll never find your paper again. Next thing you know, you're signing somebody else's paper and you have no clue where yours went. So please make sure you put your name on it. And if you notice, if you kind of peruse through the questions, those questions are not content specific. Okay, so then it lowers that anxiety level a little bit. I made, obviously, those questions a little bit geared towards this particular audience. But when you're working, depending on if you're working in elementary or if you're working in high school, then you would gear those questions towards something that you know your kids might be able to find the answer for, or one they already know the answer. Okay, so it lowers that. Everyone wants to experience success, especially our ELL students. We want them to be able to experience that success right off the bat. So then, you begin that trust. So how does it work? There's a few rules, okay? General purpose, it's a good breaking the ice activity, okay? I like using it that way. And then it's also really good like when you're reviewing at the end of a unit. Putting questions and it ends up turning into somewhat of a study guide and the kids are working on it, okay? 2, it gets you up and out of your seat. So a little bit about that is that you guys are going to be moving a little bit. Those of you guys who like to sit by yourselves, I know how you feel, but you're going to probably end up moving or working together. So if I knew your names off the bat, I would say, this is her name, and 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 then you guys would sit together, all right? So what are some guidelines? How can we make this easier? Well, one of the things is that you cannot sign your own paper. Okay? You cannot sign your own paper, and you can't answer any of your own questions, and you can only get one answer from each person. So you can't go to your best friend in the classroom and then have them answer all the questions for you and sign all the papers. So what does this do? It forces you guys to have to talk to one another, and then it lowers the anxiety level because the question's already there. And 3, you're not having to come up with the answer yourself. Okay? So what I would like for you to do is take a look at the questions, find something that you feel comfortable with answering, and then once I say 1, 2, 3, go, I need for you guys to get up out of your seats and walk around and introduce yourself and say hello, shake their hand, introduce yourself, and answer a question. And the first person who's finished, when you finally fill out your whole paper, come to me, please. Okay? All right, 1, 2, 3. Students get to meet each other. They have academic discourse. They're not talking about what you did this weekend or what are you going to do this upcoming weekend. They're actually talking about the content. So obviously right now these were easy questions. But when you're in the classroom, it could be about anything. For me, it's always about science. I teach biology, freshman bio. I teach anatomy and physiology, and I teach AP biology. So I teach 9th through seniors. The only group I don't get are sophomores. I get a few here and there, but not very many. So it works for all of them. So I could use this in a newcomer/shelter class, or I could use it in AP Bio. It lends itself to anything, and the good thing is that then you're able to plug in whatever you want, and they're having to speak. And what did you notice? What was I doing? I was interacting with my students. I was observing. I didn't really have to they're not looking at me, right? It's very student-centered. It's not about the teacher. It's about the students, and they're having to work. So it really lends itself for me to be able to walk around and interact with them and see who's really stuck, who needs some help, what's a common question that everybody will study, even to find someone who, a lot of people ask me well, so what, how am I holding them accountable with that? Well, then I would say, for example, I'm sorry, what's your name? Yasmin. Yasmin, who answered number 2? Well, me. Who answered number 3 for you?
Yasmin Hernandez.
Okay, so where's Yasmin Hernandez? Okay, so what is the answer for number 3?
Salem.
So she would say it's Salem. Very good. Okay, thank you. Who answered number 6 for you, Yasmin? No, her. You just happen to have the same. Socorro? Where's Socorro? Oh, there you go. Thank you. What's the answer for that question? You were an engineer before? Okay, and who answered that question for you? Marta. Where's Marta? Okay, so do you see how it bounces around? And so everybody is accountable. They're not just putting random stuff down because they're going to get asked if it just happens to hit on them. Okay, so just wanted to make sure that you guys have an idea of how you can do that. Another thing that I do sometimes to make it, because what happens is, I don't know if you've noticed, some people are a little bit more shy, right? And then they'll stay there for a little bit, and then they're kind of freaking out because that means that they're going to have to talk to someone. So at the end, what I have them do is kind of like a race, obviously. So Martha, right? The first person who finishes gets 100. Second person, 99. Third person, 98. I just start taking 1 point. And it's like a general little grade. So then that way it gives them incentive to actually work on it. Okay. And then they can use it as study guides, or you can use it for anything. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's see if this works. So why are you here? Well, for those of you guys that are in the classroom, hopefully you already know this, and you might not, because there's so much going on. There's so much going on that it gets overwhelming very, very quickly, okay? So there's a few things that you guys are going to need to know when you go into the classroom. We have various sets of standards that we are responsible and basically mandated to implement in the classroom, okay? So the first one are our TEKS, or Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. Most people know that. My first year teaching, right out of college, and again, remember, I did not go through the Department of Education. I went through biology. So I wanted to teach. I knew I wanted to teach, but I didn't have that education background. So I had to go through the alternative program, which is great. But my first job, I mean, I wanted to work. That's what it comes down to, right? Whoever offers you a job, I'm there. At least that's the way I was. So my first job right out the bat was at an alternative school. So I thought, I could do this, right? I'm all right. I was young. I'm like, I'm tough. I could work in an alternative school. So I went. Needless to say, at the end of that first year, I couldn't turn my neck. I was so stressed out. And they're like, okay, you need to do the TEKS. And I had to teach all the sciences. So I had to teach bio, chemistry, IPC, physics, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science. I'm like, okay. So nobody told me about this. And every one of those content areas had their own TEKS. And so then, needless to say, I became a studying fiend. I had to look at them. I still have them highlighted, written, circled, everything. What am I going to have to do? So most people become familiar with their TEKS because it's your content area. It's your passion. It's what you like. Okay. So I really don't have to stress that one too much. But then now we have one called the College and Career Readiness Standards. So this is how the trend is. How is it that we're going to get our high school students, our students ready for college? What is it that they need to know? What techniques, what strategies, what information do they need to have so that they could be successful in the university? Okay? And then finally, we have a third set of standards that we need to implement as well. So we have our English Language Proficiency Standards, or the ELPS. So today, what I'm supposed to do, what my goal is, to get you familiar with what the ELPS are, okay? But I need for you to keep in mind that when you do finally enter the classroom, you have 3 sets of standards that you need to implement, okay? And most people don't know this, okay? So, and they're mandated. It's not like, well, if you feel like it. If you like it, if you like 2B, go ahead and implement that one. No, they're all required. At some point in the year, you need to touch those standards, or each one of those. So today we're going to focus on the ELPS.